make Count Dooku's lightsaber.
I thought you've already made it.
I did. I made this on my tiny one back in the day. But I don't know where it went. And I never painted it. And so this one, the filament from Matter Hackers is already this shiny. So I don't need to paint it, which is kind of cool. I just painted the black stuff. This red is the silver color with a Sharpie. And this is some gold paint that I had.
Looks pretty good.
They don't sell this lightsaber at Disney World. I wish they did. That's my favorite one. Bob says it looks stupid, but he's allowed to be wrong.
I personally don't like that one.
I know. A lot of people don't, and that's fine. I think it's cool.
I like Yoda's.
It's just like when I was training, doing martial arts training for the film that we were going to shoot. Most of it was weapons training because it was a medieval era type movie, and so all of us needed to learn how to sword fight. And just learning how to like handle weapons, if you were to like take it and bend it, that'd be so weird. It'd be so, you couldn't adjust, like you'd only be able to like hold it one way. You couldn't, it just throws me off. Like functionally, having that weird bent handle like that just throws me off in terms of like how functional it would be as a weapon.
I always envisioned holding the lightsaber backwards, like a lot of people nowadays do. And so I always envisioned a lightsaber that I had having something like jut off of here. Like having this little spiky dealy, but like coming off that way. So that
like
you could
a handguard?
like lightsaber and then axe at the same time, like stabby and slicey.
Stabby slicey.
Yeah. Like this up here, like you wouldn't, this seems like it would just poke you in the leg a lot. This is where the business happens. So unless this has something to do with like the actual emitter, whatever lightsaber piece, this just seems unnecessary. It looks cool. But like put something like that down here so that I remember somebody had a Confederate Army knife that had like, it had like a knuckle guard. And a lot of knives, like the big Bowie knives that have knuckle guards, are not meant to be used like a knife. It's meant to be like that. So it's like a brass knuckles, and you could slash, and you can stab. So that's what I envision, like the Kirby piece. I think is cool because if you were to swap it around, I just wish it had more. Not that if you would hit somebody, it would like turn the thing off, which I think is bad design. But yeah, I don't know. It's different.
It's an interesting toggle switch for a lightsaber.
Yeah. It's real big for an old man. It's like the gigantic buttoned calculators.
It's the big remote control.
Couldn't go with the little thingy on the side.
He's so senile.
Bang. Bang. Gungi's lightsaber is probably my favorite in terms of Gungi. He's the Wookiee from Star Wars Rebels. He has the wood and metal lightsaber. Yeah, that one's probably my favorite.
I've seen that guy. I haven't gotten that far in Rebels yet. I think we're on season 3. I'm way behind the game watching Rebels.
Yeah, it's when Ezra goes to train.
So how y'all been?
Good.
Busy.
Tired, busy.
Yeah.
How have you been?
The same. Tired and busy.
Tired and busy.
Yeah. Between like sitting down here in the office editing video, and Bob already released it that we're making a Fusion 360 like deep dive course, and I've been editing almost that entire thing. So it's like sitting down here, coming up with like a lesson plan, and then having him record it, me downloading footage and then editing it and putting it. It's just it's a long-winded process. And then we've been doing a big like overhaul of our backyard and our side yard with our neighbor, because our in between our yards comes down to a V, and so it's just always water has always settled right there. So we're doing like a French drain. I moved all my pool stuff that was underneath the deck, because we have an above ground pool with a wraparound deck. So to get to any of the like pool guts, got like climb underneath there, and it's always been really awkward. So we dug a big flat pad and put concrete pavers and stuff. So now I can get to it a lot easier. But the dirt here is like super duper hard, and all that stuff's been really heavy, and it's just tiring. But today I finally got all that stuff working, all of it connected, all of it hooked up. The pump is running. It should be filtering right now. So I should be happy after all that work. I should be happy that it works, but I'm just tired. And I'm mad that it didn't work the first time. I finally got everything to work, stopped all the leaks, got the motor running. But yeah, I want to have a proper victory lap, but I can't. I'm just like, ugh, it should have worked the first time. I'm not reveling in the fact that it all works right now. I'm mad it didn't work the first time. That's a strange reaction.
It seems appropriate for you as a personality.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's earlier, before you guys hopped on, my wife and I were talking about that. She was like, but it works and you should be happy. I'm like, I should be, but I'm not. And I don't know why.
I mean, have you guys been able to, have you gotten the pool up and running yet?
No, we took the tarp off. We're cleaning it out. Like all that work was a precursor to opening the pool, because we had to move all the pump, move the giant sand filter, move all that stuff to the new, like, little pad, or not little, the gigantic pad thing we made beside the deck. And so it's a big project with a series of start to finish sequences that have now led up to like turning the pump on so the pool can be cleaned out. And so this theoretically is the end of all of that work. So I should be double happy.
So your victory lap would be, when you can enjoy the pool once everything.
Yeah,
A
like
literal
a
lap.
cannonball. I think it's a
Yeah.
a literal circular lap, a victory cannonball. Yeah, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, then you'll be happy.
Then I'll do a wheelie down the street in my motorcycle once it finally works.
Then it collapses beneath you.
I don't know. Do you guys face that? Like when you're finished with something? Like, I don't know. I get mixed feelings when I struggle through something and I'm finally done with it. It doesn't seem like a fireworks and high fives kind of moment. It seems like a cursing the thing because it should have worked a long time ago.
Cursing the thing or cursing yourself?
A cursing the thing.
Like most of the
turn
time,
pump on.
I curse myself. I don't curse the thing. I curse my own, most of the time it's lack of experience or knowledge in trying to do what I want to do. So I curse myself. Sometimes I'll curse the thing, though. I'll just want to burn it. Just burn it all down.
I think it depends on the project. I mean, there's some where I will think, I'm finally done with it, but I spent way too much time on it, or I took too long to do it. And I think it kind of, takes away from the feeling or, the elation I should get with, with it being done. But it varies.
Yeah, I need a project where I can be elated.
I take giddy pride in the things that I make when they turn out not horrible. I'm more relieved that the project is done, so I can stop worrying about it, so I can move on to something else and worry about that until it's done.
Yeah.
And then I can stop worrying about it.
It's occupying like CPU cycles in my brain while I'm still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I get tired of running that program. So
I don't know. I haven't. I've put out almost 70 videos in the 3 years that I've been doing this whole making thing, and even 3 years into this, I still get a really giddy feeling hitting the publish button every time I put out a new video, and that it's done, and the project is done, and the video's out there in the world, and now I can just sit back for like 5 minutes and enjoy something that I made, and hopefully other people have other people enjoy it too. I don't know. Maybe that giddy feeling will wear off in time, but for right now, I still get giddy about when I actually finish a project.
Well, that's good though. Like when I stopped making YouTube videos, it was because I never got that giddy feeling, especially from like the editing and the publishing piece. Like just being, I guess, more relieved for the project being finished, and then the other piece seemed really arduous. It was never like the exciting uptick in emotions because I had to I get to edit the video and then maybe people will like it. Like that piece was always not really even nerve-wracking, but it just seemed extra.
Yeah.
So that's really good that you still get that feeling after 70 videos.
Yeah, not burned out yet. My biggest thing is just, I don't know, finishing the projects. I have so many ideas for projects and creative possibilities of the things that I want to do. And it's just time. And it's funny because on Instagram I'll have conversations with other people that are like, "Oh, I'm not creative at all. It's hard for me to come up with ideas or figure out what projects to do next." And I'm just like, my head is so full of ideas, of things to. Maybe I'll just put my ideas out there so like other people can make the things that I come up with, because I don't have the time to do it. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, maybe I should come up with like a game on how to like spark creativity in makers, so the people who struggle, who aren't like me, whose brains are weird, but that sometimes may struggle with creativity. Maybe I can like put something together to help those people like creatively be inspired for a project. Take some of the weirdness of the inside of my head and just give it to other people. Maybe help them. I don't know. It's an idea I had. One of many.
An idea for ideas.
We talked about the possibility.
Yeah, an idea for ideas.
We talked about the possibility of putting out projects out there or sharing them, especially ones that we knew that we were probably never going to get to, or ones that we might have been less passionate about, and then seeing maybe somebody else kind of run away with it. So maybe that's still a possibility that we get to revisit and make somewhat official.
Yeah.
Did I ever share with you guys the card game? Where did I get that? I don't even know where it is. It's like a series of it's a card, like a deck of cards, but not playing cards. It has 3 like colors, and they each have like a noun of some kind. One has like a noun, and then like a capability, and then a constraint, or something like that. But like you're supposed to pick one of each of these colors, and it's like thing that walks a dog, like in space or something crazy. Like it has these 3 categories. And so you were supposed to be able to brainstorm with like a group of people these really insane ideas. Like a lot of them are just like not feasible at all. But to get to like, okay, how would you even approach this? What would that begin to look like? What resources do we currently have? What could we adapt? And it was really fun. Bob got it at OrdCamp, which and Venables and Google put on in Chicago every year. Man, have you got that? I don't know where that deck of cards was. Because it's really crazy stuff. It's kind of neat, but like more for like a group setting. Yeah,
that's kind of the idea that I had, because for my birthday for the last 2 years, last year I got Once Upon a Time, which is a card game that gives you characters or plot points and a final destination, and the thing is that you need to use your imagination to fit these characters into the plot lines of the cards that you have to reach your final destination. And everybody's trying to do the same thing, and everybody has different characters and different plot points and whatnot, and you end up crafting this tale as you play the game. And so my kids and I have like taken that in conjunction with Chick-fil-A, the little educational games that they have with like dice and cards and stuff like that. So we've kind of merged the 2 ideas together for bedtime stories, of taking like, okay, there's these characters, we're gonna tell a story about these characters, and then we'll roll dice, and they're like, oh, they're gonna go on an adventure, or they're gonna find a treasure, or they're gonna something like that, kind of integrating these 2 things together to come up with ideas for how to tell a bedtime story. And I'm like, well, what if we take this principle of say, like in terms of makers, like a material, or like you were talking about constraint, or something like that, to give people a direction to come up with ideas on making something, sparking that creativity that, maybe that they lack, but just, nudging them in the right direction. I've had ideas for how to put that together, but it still needs work.
Jimmy did that. Jimmy DeRessa did that at the Louisville Maker Faire when he was here. He do that at Bay Area Maker Faire too, didn't he? Where like he got up on stage.
Caleb. Yeah.
Yeah, and like people just threw out crazy ideas, and he had a marker board. It was like drawing and prototyping ways to make people's like audience shouted like knife that does a thing, and he's like, okay, yeah, we could totally do that. And
for the most part, it doesn't seem like the four of us at least have a problem coming up with ideas. There might be things we don't want to do in the moment, but we typically have a list of ideas that we'd like to explore or pursue. Do you think that you would get to more of your ideas, or you'd be more productive if you had a team to work with? I mean, Josh, I know that you essentially have a team to work with, but like for Donovan and Wes, how much different do you think it would be to actually have,
better.
Instead of
I think it'll be a lot better.
yeah.
Yeah.
it
Having
is nice
someone
to like vet an idea. Depending on like your team, it could morph into like a better version of what you're doing, or it can creep into like this weird tangential like unicorn nonsense and go off on in a crazy path that may be unattainable. It may creep so much that you just kind of lose focus on it. But being able to vet real life ideas off of people who have different skill sets, because I mean, whatever, if you were to open your crazy notebook and flip to a thing and just read a title, that could spur something in each one of the four of us on some weird thing that we may have done in the past or may have happenstance done, and it would just become so easy on how to move forward. And the little hurdles that you may see as barriers to starting or barriers to addressing a certain topic could be completely already figured out the moment you
we've
said
done that in this podcast. We've done that. Look at the Nunchuks of Lightning, the Ninjago thing. My original idea was to carve them out of wood because I'm crazy, and to do like chain links and then put glow in the dark epoxy on it. But during an episode, we brainstormed and came up with 3D printing and the glow sticks. Mm-hmm. Like we did that. We've done that together. It was benefiting my project, so thank you.
Well, does anybody have a project that they need a little bit of hurdling? I have a starter for a motorcycle, in case you guys have ever rebuilt a starter for a motorcycle.
I loved your story the other day. This just like, it was very simple. Starter is dead. Poop emoji. Or started doesn't work or something like that. I can't remember.
People have been asking me all the time about that motorcycle. I said, but motorcycle update. Starter doesn't work. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
I wish I had some expertise in that area to be some.
Well, a lot of people do, and a
Don't.
lot of people have been very helpful. Because again, it's something that like they don't have to worry about. It's something that they've just been around so much, and because this is completely foreign and new to me, I don't get it. And so someone sent me the link for like a rebuild kit. I'm like, oh great, I don't have to spend $80 to $100 on a thing. I can just spend $16 and just replace the guts. Like that's too easy. And I did, and it still doesn't work. So
I don't necessarily have a project that I need help with at the moment, but I think that I'm at a point where I feel like one of the things that's preventing me from going in a certain direction that I want to go for some projects is, and I've talked about this on Facebook, like knowledge about circuits and understanding how electronic circuits work. I have like a very, very basic knowledge, but I feel like there's so many gaps in that knowledge. I didn't learn things properly that I don't feel like I can make any headway. A couple of years ago, Wes, I think you bought me, because I found it, like a humble bundle of like circuit stuff. I came across it, I downloaded it all. I haven't looked at it yet, but I found some like circuit diagrams of, okay, here's the symbols that are used for like a resistor, transistor, all these things. And I'm basically going to try to commit to putting myself through a school to, I mean, unofficially, because I'm not going to be attending a class, but to learn on my own how to do some of this stuff. Because I feel like I can't go forward with some of the projects I want to do unless I know some of this basic stuff.
Yes, Spark Fun. Is that right? The
I think it was. There was a collection of like 5 or 6 different things in it.
The web company, they're equivalent to like Adafruit, Spark Fun. I think that's what it's called. They have a series of YouTube videos that explain, like, on a more fundamental level, like capacitor and resistor and transistor and, you know, all the main low-level components as like a primer for like learning stuff in electronics. So I would recommend going through those. They're pretty. I'll try to find the links for you, but they're pretty nice even for me, like for like a refresher, just to like LEDs and why you need different things for different stuff. And they're not completely, like, it's not going to completely reveal all the magical mystery, you know, that you don't understand, but it definitely will help. And I don't think you need like super like low level electronics engineering prowess to be able to do what you're trying to do. Like Arduino is like helps so much with that, you don't really even have to, but I mean it definitely would help.
It's weird though, because I mean I know like a lot of the basic fundamentals. I could pick up a part and I could probably name it and even tell you what it does, but I couldn't use it. I could not appropriately put it in the circuit. And you know, like I said, there's like all these little gaps that I think I need to kind of fill in. And where is it? I have a breadboard sitting here, and I want to be able to set up like test circuits and just kind of make some things work, because you know I can't do much unless I could do that on my own.
Well, I mean that's your first step.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was trying to learn how to make a circuit, like I made a flashlight. I made my own flashlight just because I wanted to know how it worked and how to do it. And I'm like, well, what do resistors do? I'm like, why in the world do I even need this? There's like a million of them, and they all got their own weird little fruit stripe kind of flavor. And so I'm learning how the power works with certain components that can only take so much power. And I think Wes is exactly right. Like knowing that stuff instinctually. It's like, oh, if you're going to rig up this component, you need a 1,000 ohm or a 2,500 ohm or whatever, and then looking at the colors and knowing that that's that one versus that one. But just the concept of knowing what a resistor does or what a capacitor does in your very basic, like caveman, like the flashlight that I made, I'm like, the bulb keeps burning out. I'm like, well, it's getting too much current or too much power or too much something. It's getting too much of something that it can't handle. Well, what is it? What's this? Well, how do I stop that? And like, well, if you want to restrict it, you need a resistor. I'm like, oh, that's what that thing does. And so just by like tinkering around and it failing, it'd be very nice if it failed in a very obvious way so that you could determine what the root cause was. And that's my hardest part in electronics is you do all the work and then it doesn't do anything.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, then everything could be the problem. And so that's the overwhelming part. But yeah, start with something like super duper simple that's not Arduino based, because that's going to do a lot of the logic for you. But like just mess with the components. Like that breadboard. That breadboard is awesome because it allows you to do everything.
Back in high school, my physics class, we actually learned how to build circuits. And I was working at Chuck E. Cheese at the time, fixing games. I was working with resistors, and I knew all that stuff at one time. And then, 25 years later, it actually is something that I care about and want to do, and I don't remember any of it. In fact, when I was in high school trying to get into the Navy, before I got disqualified, I was getting qualified, or I wasn't getting qualified. I was going in to learn electronics. That's the job that I was, supposedly going to be going in for. But none of that happened. So.
But even then,
25-year loop.
You're going to learn very specific stuff. You talked about going to like the school, like the metaphorical school versus actual school. We did a project where we went down to like a trade school and we were working with electricians. But those electricians are working on like commercial grade components. They're not working with resistors. They're not working with the stuff that, like a breadboard. They're never going to know what a breadboard is unless they learn that themselves. We came in with a Plinko machine that we had rigged up with a microcontroller with like 12-volt LEDs, and they came in with like a huge, like, first aid kit size group of components. And we're like, what the heck is that thing? They're like, oh, it's a switch. They're like, it's a relay. It'll turn stuff on and off. We're like, uh-huh. Like, that's its one job? And so they were hooking up these huge, like, analog components to this thing that was so far removed from what we had in mind. Because that's what they were going to deal with on, like, an industrial level. And so even if you were to go, like, to a school, there's no guarantee that you're going to learn the stuff that you want to learn, just because it's very specific in a class. Like, my roommate was a computer engineer and took integrated circuits. Learn all day about an integrated circuit, but the one that he may need for a project, they may never cover. So I think if you have a project in mind, trying to address incrementally what you want it to do, and then breadboard the whole thing, like, break it down, make every single one of those wires touch each other, and then try to learn how to make it efficient.
Because this is going back to your pinball project, right? Ultimately?
Yeah, that's... Yeah, in some capacity. There's 3 or 4 projects that I have that aren't pinball that are going to need some sort of circuit. You know, like I have a automated dog feeder project that I actually need.
That'd be a great starter project.
Because yeah. And I understand most of the idea behind it. I just have to, figure out how to run a clock on the Arduino, so something could rotate a certain amount, every 24 hours. Conceptually, I understand the process, but getting down and starting to connect things and mapping it out, that's where I'll have some hurdles to hop over.
See, but even that is, like, very specific in the Arduino programming language, because, like, it doesn't have time like you think of time. It has units, and there's only so many, so you couldn't put, like, every 60 seconds to a thing. It doesn't know what a second is. So you would have to...
There should be a time library for Arduino.
Well, it doesn't think of time the way that your brain thinks of time. It's in cycles, and it's how many, like, it's a breakdown of a second. It's going to continue looping. I'm not the smartest, and I should probably shut up.
I think
right
it
now,
lacks an
but
internal clock, is what you're thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, because my comparison is the programming that I do in Python, which, they have a specific library that has been written that has a way to emulate time, even though it doesn't have a traditional clock.
Right. Like a Pi with a Raspberry Pi, you can get it to use a library that, like, sync, because it has internet access with a Pi versus like an Arduino, unless you go through additional shields and stuff. So, like, you could use one that uses, like, a time from your router, or time from GPS, or like the U.S. Naval Observatory has, like, all their time data online. So there's
time servers that you can sync up with. Yeah.
But that being a microcomputer, not a microcontroller.
I mean, you can also have it like light sensor too.
Just like Wes said,
if it's over a certain threshold, it's in the morning, and then you could just, instead of time necessarily, it could be based on environmental factors.
As long as it only does
so many feedings within a certain
one. Yeah.
Or you could just put out, like, a teaspoon periodically through the day.
Like one kibble or bit, like every 15 minutes.
Tink. Your dog will just live right next to that bowl and just wait for its one little food morsel.
So much about that world that I don't understand. You guys were talking about circuits and capacitors and Flotsam and Jepson, and I was just kind of zoning out.
We have another making Geeks class on breadboarding or something.
That is some. I mean, breadboarding is something I want to play around with, because, there's always lots of things that I've come up with and ideas for things that could facilitate these things if I knew how to work it or to do it, but I don't yet. And so trying to take on projects like that, I end up cursing at myself and my own knowledge and inexperience.
Yeah, but I think you're always going to face that to some extent. I mean, I don't know. Maybe electronics and things has like an extra level of mysticism to it. But I mean, you didn't know how to work a table saw at one point. You didn't know how to work a laser or a CNC. And so I think it's where you choose to place your efforts. Like everything that we do is difficult. Everything that we do has a learning curve and has its own very specific equipment and components to it.
And language, yeah.
So, yeah, like I got an Arduino for Dummies, whatever kind of kit. And it came with a Chinese Arduino, not even a name brand Arduino, just Chinese Arduino knockoff. A bunch of random sensors that half of them didn't work. And it gives you like little example projects. Like you feel really proud when you get the little light to blink. Like that's the first thing you do. Yeah, I think it was that one. Like you get the light to blink and you're really happy. And then you figure out how to get more lights to blink and then how to get them to blink in a sequence that you want. And then transfer that same knowledge over to a strip of RGB LEDs where you can add an animation. And it's just like any other skill set that you're hoping to obtain. It's just the making it a priority and stepping out and going like, I am going to start learning this brand new thing. You're gonna make the light blink is step one, and they're gonna teach you how to do it.
A lot of
and that
a lot of things seem to have like a lot of extra baggage, so they're more intimidating for some people. But yeah, it all starts with.
And it's written in like a different language. I mean, there's no like, you don't have to talk to your table saw in Klingon to get it to work. Like an Arduino, you kind of have to speak the robot language. But I think what may be really daunting is that people look at the code and you're like, I'm not a hacker and I don't understand all that stuff. But a majority of that, like Sean was saying, are in libraries that you copy and paste chunks of stuff that people have already done to get it to accomplish what you want it to accomplish.
Most people don't program from scratch.
What?
Most people don't program from scratch anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a wasted effort. Like programming from scratch. Like somebody's already figured it out. Like it's just, it's the example of the flashlight that I talked about. There's no reason I needed to make my own flashlight. That's stupid. I just wanted to figure out how it worked. It didn't work very well, and I wasn't going to go get this giant piece of plywood with a whole bunch of crap screwed down to it to try to find my keys in the dark. But if you wanted to take the time to figure out how to do it, you can. But someone's already done it better, so just grab theirs to get to your ultimate end goal. And yeah, it's not something that I'm an expert at, but it is something that has the mystique knocked off of it, because you kind of take those first leaps into it, and it's not as daunting as you make it seem in your head.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I think the biggest thing is if I want to learn that, whatever the proverbial that is for a given project, I have to take away time from making the project to learn the thing to do to do the project, which is hard because, yeah, I mean, I tend to have so little time to work on the projects themselves anyway that if I take more time away from that, I'm like, am I ever gonna put up my next video? I don't know.
It's like you're paying forward though. Like if the time you put into that, then think of how many doors open up afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. I was talking myself out of it though. It's terrible. Like my brother just got a Raspberry Pi for his birthday, and I got him a little case and a little training circuit board with little wires that you can pin from the Pi into this little circuit board and push the buttons and write the Python code so that when you push a button, it does a thing with the thing. I don't know how it all works.
That's pretty much how it works.
That's pretty much how it works. Yep. But it's cool to have that to have that established thing to help you in that process. I mean, I can't remember if it's this conversation that we had last week, but like learning to code in a void is really hard. Was it with you guys?
I don't think so.
No? Somebody told me this, like, if you're trying to learn how to code in a void, it's really hard. Like, you need a project. You need something that you want to do something, and then learn how to code to do that. Not just, don't sit down and be like, okay, let's do hello world, and this syntax does this, and because then you lose interest and it's not applicable and you forget it. Maybe it was on Discord. But anyways, and so it's, having the project definitely, I think, would be a good catalyst for learning the thing, whatever the thing is that I want to do. Right now it seems to be Python, because now that my brother is learning, he wants me to learn with him, which
That's
maybe
perfect.
it's a catalyst in and of itself right there.
Like, for example,
I mean, that analogy, sorry, is like sitting down going, I'm going to do art today. Like, what? Like, what does that even mean? Like, you have a lofty pie in the sky goal, but everything is possible. So you have to narrow it down. I mean, if you want a doorbell camera, you could go buy one at the store for a couple $100, or you can make one. Or if you want to turn your 3D printer into its own little robot machine, like, you can do that too. You can push a button and it feeds your dog. Like, all of those things are possible. Having a narrowed focus, like sitting still in a chair and going, I wish that thing over there could do a thing I want it to do, but I'm not going to move from this seat. How would I do that? And that is your first Arduino or Raspberry Pi project.
Yeah.
like, for example,
Luckily, I have friends that make up for my life.
I was gonna say,
at the
like,
moment.
for example, if you
But
had let's say, for example, you had a table with like some resin, and you want to do some LED lights. Either you could do it yourself, or you get a friend to help you. Well, then you'll end up learning it because your friend helped you, which is fine. But had we lived in the same regional area in this hypothetical situation, said friend could help you learn how to have done it instead of doing it themselves in
Yeah.
this hypothetical situation.
Hypothetically, we may have tried to crunch for time to hit a deadline we ended up missing. So said hypothetical friend ended up doing for this fictional person. Yeah. So for example, the Star Wars desk. I wanted, since I had, the Millennium Falcon, chasing a TIE fighter and a TIE interceptor, I was like, well, can it look like the Millennium Falcon is like shooting at the, at the TIE fighter and the TIE interceptor? And Wes is like, yeah.
Yep.
And here's how you do it. I mean, he didn't show me exactly how to do it, but he said, yeah, it could be done. You have an Arduino, you write the code for the programming, you could stagger, you could change the colors, all that kind of stuff. And he built it, and he soldered it, and he sent it
In a day.
It is
Fastest I've ever made a thing.
So what's your input? Is it a button? Did you make a tactile switch? How does it start?
It's a battery hooked up to an Arduino circuit board, hooked up to an LED strip that when you turn it on, it randomly generates red light lasers from point A to a random point along this LED strip. So it could be from 0 to 5 or 0 to 15. I don't know exactly what the moniker is for it. And it just does that randomly and at random time intervals. So it's not,
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's variety.
So it's
to
running
it.
on a random loop.
And hopefully, if I've done my job right in in the resin and everything that I'm doing with the table, putting this right under that little crack in the table will make it do what I want it to do. Because Wes has already made his thing do what it needs to do. I just need to make sure that I'm doing my part so that it ends up doing what I want.
Yeah, and for that example, like, I didn't program that from scratch. I looked online to see if there was an example of like a red light chasing, like, animation, and I found a, I think it was either a Cylon or it was a Cylon animation or a Kit, like Knight Rider animation, where the light was going back and forth, and they had a version where it would just go in one direction, like over and over again. Instead of bouncing left to right, it would just go from left to right, and that's it, and then start over. So that's basically your pulse, and I just kind of tweaked the numbers.
So like a turn signal,
Yeah, sort of.
like the fancy turn signal.
So then I just.
But Donovan, do you understand, like in a very rudimentary level, like how it's doing that?
I understand the process. If I plugged into my computer and looked at the code, I might have an aneurysm. I don't know. I haven't attempted to look at the code. Mainly because I don't want to screw it up.
But you can't.
Oh, you can't.
I don't think you can view what's already on there. Like, it won't send the information back to your computer to view it. Like, once you dump it in there,
you can just send it to the Arduino.
I can send you what I have, so you can look at it, and then you can make changes and send it to it. But you can't like view what's on it. It doesn't really work like that, unfortunately.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, because that was one of the caveats that you gave, in doing it for me, basically. As you're like, hey, in the future, if there's something you want to change about it, you can just go in, alter this, that, and the other, and then send it to the Arduino, and it'll do whatever other.
And that varies from the Pi a little bit, because the Pi has a memory card on it, so you can it's a drive, so you can go in there and look at it and open the file and look at the code. Whereas on Arduino, it like temporarily puts that on, and it's like a one-way process. You can do the one-way process over and over again, writing it, rewriting it with updated stuff, but you can't look at it and pull stuff out, unfortunately.
The good news about the process is that the way that you explained it shows that you have a pretty good understanding how it works. And you have to have that before you can, do the code too. And you explained it in a way that, would match up with the way the code runs in a lot of ways too.
I mean, all those processes to get that's what an algorithm is. I want this input to trigger an action, and that action will loop or look for that trigger for a certain amount of time. And so that's all that is, and you're just assigning variables. So you made a random variable. So it would start at light, because if it's on an RGB segment, each one of those are numbered. So it would start on number X and go this number through this number, and then you're asking that thing to randomly generate a number. And yeah, it's you may not know the actual like keystroke inputs, but a majority of that is breaking it down to what you want it to do in the most elementary level, because that robot doesn't understand your intent. It's what do you want me to do, my master? You go start at 5 and then go to 12. Okay, done. You're like, well, I kind of wanted it a little bit different. And it's like, I don't understand it a little bit different. And you're like, well, randomly go from 5 to something else. Okay, I can do that. How many times? A bunch of times. Randomly. When do I start? Randomly. Okay, done. Now, I mean, again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what that algorithm is. And then going to look online for something that someone has already done that matches it, kind of. And a lot of the code I think is extremely helpful. Is it when you're writing Arduino code, if you don't want it to be an actual actionable line, was it like a slash?
Comment out?
You make a slash. Yeah, it's commented, and so a lot of stuff that you're going to get from other people in libraries that they've already made have comments along each one of those that'll walk you through what that line of code actually does, or what variables, or what time increments, or what RGB indicators. Like it's there's a lot of hand-holding. There's a lot more hand-holding than I think that you think there is. Give it a go.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to do it. I'm going to do it. It will be done. It's just picking the project.
Are you waiting for the legs for that one? Like, what part are you?
No, I got the legs. I got the legs. He came over and brought the legs. Derek from Square Splinter. He cut the bases out on his ginormous metal laser, so they're all fancy looking and everything. And then he hand welded and sanded and colored and all that kind of stuff, the legs themselves. So I got the legs. I got legs. Do you like bread? Nobody gets that joke. Anyways,
That's
And
offensive
so
when
I
you say you have legs.
I have the legs. I'm sorry.
I got more legs than I know what to do with.
Yes. And so I was actually right before we were recording here. I was in the garage and screwing that was an unfortunate pause. I was in the garage screwing one of the sets of legs into the table on one side. And so now what I only need to do is carve the track for the LED strip, and once that's down, I'll screw the legs and flip it over, and it should be done. Just top coat and sand and finishing coat, and I should have a desk finally.
Are you doing the dump pour, like the tabletop epoxy on the top?
No, well, I got some top coat epoxy. It's not total boat. It's not the deep set. It's for countertop epoxy is what it is. And so I got the countertop epoxy that I'm gonna mix a little bit and do the live edges, paint on the live edges. I'm assuming this is what I do. Nobody
Run through what you're gonna do.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do once I have the wireless charger underneath the Rebel symbol. I finally carved into that deep enough that the wireless charger will charge the phone if you set it on top of it, which I didn't realize. It's only like a 1/16 of an inch that you can put between, and I inset bloodwood into the sycamore, and I had to carve all that out. I'm like, oh, this is terrifyingly close to destroying everything. But I got it and it works, and so I glued it in there, and I carved a line down to the back so I can lay the power cord into the back, and I screwed the legs on one side of the desk. So what I'm going to do now is route the groove for the LED strip and mount that on the bottom of the desk, and then put the other legs on the other side because it has to go over it, which is why I'm mounting the grooves. Once all that's done, I'm going to flip it over. And then I'm going to take some of that, clear coat epoxy, and I'm going to paint it on the live edges to seal them. And then once that's all dry, I am going to basically just take clear coat epoxy in one of those scrapers and do it all along the top and hope that it works. Is that the steps? Am I missing anything?
Almost. Paint the live edge.
Yeah.
Paint the whole thing. Paint the whole thing in a really, really thin layer. Excuse me.
Like top, sides, everything.
Yep.
Just paint the whole thing.
Yep. And then once you do that, it's going to have little bubbles. Run it over with a heat gun or a blowtorch and burn those. Burn them. They pop. Once you're done with that, sand the whole thing, and then do a pour coat over top of that. So. Instead of just painting the live edge, paint the whole thing, and then do your squeegee whatever after it has a very thin layer that you've sanded. Mm-hmm. Sand to 120, 220, get all the little imperfections off the top, and then do your squeegee coat.
Okay.
Because you're going to run into the stuff that you expect to happen with the live edge, what is going to happen over that whole table. So do the whole thing.
Because that was my issue in doing the epoxy in the crack. Is that I didn't do the live edges on the inside of the crack first. Yep. So when it's set, I got these little, they kind of look cool, but they're these little bubble trails that go up from the wood, up to the top of the epoxy.
It's super porous, and that's just all that little there. And so by doing a thin coat, you seal up those. You're not going to fill them like it's trying to do when you do a dump. Do a really thin when you seal it, and then when you sand it, you're sanding it pretty smooth, but all those little bubbles, little tiny bubbles, and they're everywhere on that huge slab. You're sealing them up so when you do your final pretty coat, that is nice and smooth, nice and glassy.
Okay.
So I still have that thing to finish. That was my pre-COVID-19 project, was that stupid walnut bench, and I did the bottom of it. That I poured that gray looking river epoxy crap in. It's sitting with dust on it right now. I did the bottom, and I went through Total Boat's entire tabletop process, and it looks beautiful. Nice and smooth, nice and glossy. I listened to them. I listened to What's her name? Jen Crow? Somebody Crow? Whatever her name was, with the crazy blue eyes. I listened to her. Turned out wonderful. And then the motorcycle came and the virus hit, and then I haven't done the top. So it takes a minute, but paint the whole thing, sand the whole thing, then do your final coat.
Done and done.
Yeah. So I don't want you to have anything less than what you would expect to have on that huge, nice piece of wood.
Yeah. And it really is gorgeous. It's got a lot of, what do they call it? Burling? Not burling. Character? I don't. All the fancy lines in the sycamore.
The black lines?
Yeah, the
black lines are spalting.
Spalting. That's what it is. Spalting.
That's
it looks cool. It really does.
Spalting is wood rot, but it's like dry aging beef. It's like you want it to rot, but you want it to rot in the right way, and that's what spalting is.
It could also be as a result of like infestation too at times, like bugs and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. So that should be done soon. Should. And then I'll have a video out because it's been a while. Haven't posted on Instagram, haven't posted on YouTube. And for some unexplained reason, maybe it's the virus and nobody's got anything better to do, I've gotten like new followers on Instagram and new followers on YouTube, and all 4 of my Ninjago videos are at almost at 1 million views now, and I'm like, who is watching this? So there's still people out there that are, an audience, I guess. As much as I haven't been, posting, they're still finding my stuff, so that's encouraging.
Have you guys watched things on YouTube that you normally wouldn't have watched? Like, has your algorithm been
a lot of Legend of Zelda videos, which I've never watched before, but for obvious reasons I've watched. My whole recommended channel is like Zelda lore and tips and tricks and shield surfing for pros and all that kind of stuff. So
my son would recommend Mr. A Game for his Legend of Zelda walkthroughs. My son is a super fan of this Australian dude who does Breath of the Wild walkthroughs.
Okay, I'll look him up.
That screws up my algorithm just because he watches it on my account. But I don't know, because all of our normal, I guess, YouTube homies, where we're done a lot faster because there's not the lunch break like normal viewing habits. So now I'm left yearning for some YouTube content, and so I'm like, what is this? And I go down a weird rabbit hole, and I have found out that I really enjoy baseball highlights, and I don't really know why. I kind of like baseball, but watching an entire baseball game is really boring. I like playing baseball.
You just want to see the NASCAR car crashes, essentially, but for baseball. Exciting
the good stuff. And so there's that, and then there's these channels that just show people responding to weird questions on Reddit. Have you seen those? And it's some bot voice reading somebody's Reddit response, and so it's weird things like nurses tell us the weirdest thing that's happened in the ER, or women, what's the thing that you don't understand about men that they do, and it's just some random bot voice reading people's Reddit responses. And it's kind of cool because I can watch it without actually clicking on the video, and so it's just I'm just reading. So it's just somebody curating a bunch of interesting Reddit posts. That's the stuff that's screwing up my algorithm right now: baseball videos and Reddit readings.
I saw a video of Randy Johnson and the pigeon.
Oh yeah,
and about I was crying. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the video that followed that one was the worst injuries in baseball, and I'm like, nope.
Can't
Not
be as
going down
bad
that
as the
rabbit
worst
hole.
injuries in hockey, though. Some of those are really awful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are ones I stay away from. It's like the coolest plays or the funniest moments or whatever, like those kind of things. I could watch an entire like 30-minute highlight reel. I don't want to see people get hurt.
You should treat yourself and watch the injuries that happen during weightlifting competitions.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh,
Now,
Those limbs can't take that pressure.
oh.
Bend like Lego pieces.
Just
That's like those-
thinking about it.
stupid videos of like skinny white girls trying to arm wrestle each other, and one of their arm breaks. Ugh.
Floppy arm.
Ugh.
It's like a wet butter noodle.
Yeah. Their skin is just a
Yeah.
bone holder.
Gross. And on wet bone holder.
That's what we call a segue.
Yep. So, are those YouTube videos what you're geeking out about this week?
No, I found a new Oculus game. And it is called something. It's called Pavlov. It's a game that I got off of SideQuest. You're able to like side load games instead of getting them straight from the Oculus like dashboard. And it's pretty much a Call of Duty in VR. And it's pretty awesome. It's got a whole bunch of guns, and the guns work in VR exactly like they would work in real life. You have to load each one of them very specifically. It's really fun. And there's a bunch of little kids that are yelling at me because I didn't know what I was doing. But it's really fun.
Was that the
Yeah,
one that
I've-
Rocket Jump has been playing a lot lately? Do you watch them at all?
I don't know who Rocket Jump is.
Okay. Freddie Wong? No?
No.
I know.
Sorry.
I know who they are. Rocket Jump. is
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Neat. I don't know. But I
usually
discovered
do a lot of fun
SideQuest and been able to get a whole bunch of games on the Oculus to kind of like reinvigorate my desire to actually play this thing, because each Oculus game is like $30, and there's no telling if you're gonna like it or not. Some of the side games or side quest games are free, and it's pretty painless. But some of them are actually really cool. Like Pavlov is pretty dope. And it has online players, or online mode and an offline mode.
Well, obviously, if little kids are yelling at you for not
There
holding
is-
your gun.
There's a Portal analog, I'll say. It's this like crazy cactus who has these 6-shooters or these like revolvers, and the revolvers are the Portal guns. And so you're going through pretty much, it's a 1-for-1 like remake of Portal. But the way that you would like jump down and then jump down into a portal, and then it would spit you out another portal, like in the computer game, like doing that in VR, like messes with. I've never been motion sick, even all the crazy helicopter stuff I've ever done. Like I was getting queasy, flipping all around and jumping through a portal, and it was nuts. But I mean, it was kind of fun. But I don't know if I want to play it anymore. It gave me a headache the entire day.
Let's see. I'm geeking out over two things. Started watching Upload after you guys recommended that.
Okay.
I like it about 80%, 85%. Like I liked some of the concepts and stuff that they're like investigating, like the morality kind of things and all that. But it's starting to dip into that zone that was it The Boys on Amazon kind of gets into, and it's just like gratuitous, unnecessary, like cursing or violence. I don't know. It just seems like out of place sometimes, and it kind of distracts me from the overall thing they're telling. I don't know. It's just a nitpick, but it seems like they just put that in there just because the platform that they're on, they can get away with doing that, so they just put it in there, and it seems like it doesn't really add anything, in my opinion.
It's my problem with a lot of original content. Is that
What else? The other thing is I ordered a another animation cell, which is my birthday present to myself, coming up, and it is of Tiny Toons, and it's of Plucky Duck, who is dressed up as Bat Duck. If you ever remember, they used to have like Justice League kind of adventures where he was basically Batman, and he's like on top of a rooftop. He's doing like a Batman-esque pose, and he's got like the Batman suit on, but it's the duck, and it's that, and it looks pretty awesome. And so I was just looking for some other stuff on eBay, which is usually dangerous, late at night, and I'm like, oh, I saw that. Nope, got to get that one. So that should be here Monday, I think. So I'll be posting some pictures of it. Hopefully it looks as good as it did online, in real person. You never know with eBay, but I've had pretty good luck so far, so I'm looking forward to that. And it's already framed, which is a bonus. So it has like certificate of authenticity and all that, so it looks pretty legit.
That's cool. I've talking about projects and wanting to learn new things. I'm coming up with another ARG, and I want to incorporate AR, augmented reality, into my next ARG, which I've talked to Wes about a little bit. Hence this whole comments of like scratching the itch of game development that he made last week. And in my whole process of like trying to learn about AR and all that kind of stuff, I found out that Wallace and Gromit, which if you haven't seen it, it's this British claymation show that has been going for 30 years now, 40 years now. It's pretty old. But they are coming out with a claymation animation AR game this fall that they just announced a couple days ago. And I'm kind of geeking out about that. I think that's going to be uniquely cool. There was this game that came out a little while ago that it was a video game, but it was all claymation animation, and it was just so well done. It was really cool. I still get giddy about animation and claymation, that world. Even though I'm not in that world anymore, it still excites me, and seeing stuff like that I think is just cool. So I'm excited for Wallace and Gromit and AR.
I'm geeking out about pinball still, but in a slightly different way. This last week, I've probably watched 30 different videos about people that built what they call a virtual pinball cabinet. It basically has a series of LED flat panel screens that are integrated into what looks like a typical pinball cabinet, but has maybe 50 to 60 different virtual pinball tables loaded onto it. There's a pretty big community of people that have recreated classic pinball machines and basically put them online to play on the system. And then through Steam, there's a program called Pinball FX 3 that has a bunch of series of tables that are really cool, that are only virtual tables that you can also play. And you have tactile switches that are connected to like a computer, and it works like a regular pinball machine, except it's a virtual. Somebody else had an additional edition where they had an Xbox 360 camera that was connected to the system, so that when you're looking at the table, it's three-dimensional, so that the view would physically change as you're moving around it. And I thought that was pretty cool. So another rabbit hole for me to go down. So that's it. All right, so we're at that point in the show where we talk about our website, and that we have one. You could go to the contact page on that site and get a hold of us directly and listen to any comments or questions you have. And, I appreciate the people that have reached out recently and asking some questions about the show. So thank you for that. And on the homepage of the site, you can listen to all of our past episodes right there, makinggeeks.com.
We have a website, and we all also have social media accounts, which we may or may not be posting to. But if you want to see what we're working on, Sean can be found at Geek Builders. Josh can be found at Josh_makes_stuff. Wes is found at Geeksmithing, and I am found at Once Upon a Workbench.
And this is where Wes is saying a lot of things, but he's muted.
Hey-o. I'd like to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for helping keep our show on the air with their financial contributions every time we post an episode. We appreciate each and every one of you, including our top patron, Mr. Square Splinter himself. Thank you so much.
And we'd like to thank everybody for hanging out in the live chat on YouTube. If you want to be part of that conversation, we start at 9:30 on Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., 9:30 p.m. You can head on over to our YouTube channel, the Making Geeks Podcast, and be part of that conversation. And the show will be posted usually every Friday or Saturday to your podcast player of choice. And from the four of us to the four of you, we hope you have a fantastic week.
Keep it fun.
Take care.
Later.